Okay, this particular activity that we were coming up with is something that's great for primary, because in looking at the primary curriculum you'll see that there's characteristics of animals, and this is not to say that this activity couldn't fit anywhere else, but it was conveniently a good spot for it. So what we're talking about today is pulling together some patterning from math, characteristics from animals in science, and line art in visual arts. This is what could be called a finished product right here, and this is something that's very easy to accomplish. Now, considering the idea of characteristics of different animals, you might want to take a moment with your students to list some of those animals. Now, I've got a piece of paper here that we've gone through and made a little anchor chart at the bottom of some of the animals that have been discussed in class. So we've got elephants and snakes and fish and reptile, birds. We've got mammal listed here as well. Then the idea is to talk about which ones would be maybe something easier to draw or to represent, and what are some of those characteristics, so that you can be sure to get them into the drawings. Now, when we're looking at the drawings of the animals, you want to be sure to really and truly consider the characteristics. Now, what I had done with the students is drawn 3 different, what could be called a cat. And here's one, another, and the third. Now you can see that the third has been worked into, and that's because the students decided between the 3, it definitely looked like one was maybe a tiger, one was maybe a house cat, and one could be a lion. So in deciding what it was different about each of these animal shapes, they made choices as to which one maybe represented which. So after taking a look at this one and deciding that it looked more like a tiger, we started discussing pattern and how that would play out in these very simple drawings. So again, very simple shapes to get the main details, and everything being sort of separated. So let's look at another simple one. Here's one of a dog that we've gone to the next step and used just a magic marker, Crayola, what you have in your class, maybe some Sharpies, overhead markers, anything works. Nice, crisp, dark line. You can see a very simple shape in the center, very fun cartoon-like shapes for legs, head, tail, even the little nose at the end. So that's important to include and consider. Now, the patterns don't have to be exact, and that's what we're showing in this one here, that those dots are in there. There's definitely a pattern, but it doesn't have to be perfect. This one, where the student's gone ahead and made some of those zigzaggy lines, doesn't actually match what a tiger would have. Indeed, there's just one sort of lightning bolt zigzag on each of the legs, and that's fine too. So consider where a pattern might fit on each of the separate parts of the animal, and then considering the background. What are the characteristics of its habitat? So I started to look at the idea of just a simple snake. That's an easy drawing to do, an easy pattern to keep on. It can choose many. Step number 1, horizon line. Horizon lines are always within the two-third frame of your page. So if you've got a nice border drawn in place, you would go a third up, a third down, and anywhere in there you can put that horizon line. Well, I've gone ahead on the final product and put that horizon line in there, and then really considered what kinds of patterns might be included in the, let me put that down, in the background, middle ground, foreground, if you will. So the pattern for the ground, just simple dots. Now this one's placed quite nicely. And then you'll see in the background, so it doesn't get too busy, these are spread out pretty simply, but in the background you've got kind of long grasses available. So there's one kind of long grass and then a short one, and a long one and a short one. Now the trick is that you're going to have students who aren't going to necessarily see that that grass is still coming up from behind the snake. So it might be fun, or it might be an idea to just do horizon lines, take out the animal of choice, and just draw the horizon line with your border. Consider what a foreground might be and a background might be, and then can put the two together and add your snake in there and erasing any lines. Now when you're doing that with students, you want the lines to be very light. That's why I'm showing something like this. You don't want really dark lines that they're going to have to erase and leave it quite messy, because you're looking for a clean finished product in the end. Okay, now it seemed to me that some students would have difficulty with borders, so there's nothing wrong with pre-cutting heavier gauge paper and going ahead to put that border in there for students, that's fine to do as well. Now looking at these animals here, going back to this one, you can see the sun's got sort of a design. It's got a longer ray and a shorter ray. There's this kind of swirl happening in the sky, and again a longer and a shorter grass is in this one, and a simple zigzag. Now we're down to the border. That gets tricky for students, so you might want to, and it could help, to have a page that's something like this where you do some experimenting together. And of course you can do that in an anchor chart in your classroom, but you might come up with rows where you fill in your border pattern with different items, and then it gives the students a chance to see the darker ones compared to the lighter ones. And when they do their actual work, put this back in place, it works very well to have a dark and a light border. Anything works. It can be something, however, that is simple and easy to repeat. So dark, light border, horizon line, simple pattern, another simple pattern, and the animal with a simple pattern on it. Now I thought it might be nice to show some different kinds of animals and what those cartoon characters could look like. So we've got a student made here a little bird. A very simple form, just a big head, simple formed body, and a triangular nose. These are kinds of things that you could do on your chalkboard, whiteboard, smartboard, whatever board you've got in your room. Make some of these simple shapes together and think about how we can keep them simple. Some of our students will want to add lots and lots of detail, and we don't want to do that for this particular assignment. Here's an alligator or a crocodile, whichever you would choose it to be. Very simple in design. Again, we've got the elephant over here. Of course, everybody's going to talk about an elephant, and very simple, separate parts. Here's what a dog might look like. Now, keeping that all in mind, you also want to consider the other elements, not too detailed. A cloud, often students will make the clouds with kind of just all big lines together. But what ends up looking really great is if they can get that little bump in there too. So you've got a larger kind of swoosh, and then a smaller one, and a larger and a smaller one, larger, smaller one. That just makes it a little bit more cartoon-like in a professional aspect. Here's some flowers. Again, same kind of thing. Keep it very simple. So having them just practice with some patterns on a piece of paper first before we do anything else is a great idea. It's always important to have a beautiful finished product to display your student artwork, so it's great with these black and white line drawings to choose some bright colored backgrounds for them to be placed upon. Now you could choose to go with one color for the whole class. You could choose to be different for each of the students, and maybe the color choice matches some kind of characteristic of that animal. For instance, this snake you might want to have, because it looks as though it's in a desert, maybe a green or a brown or an orange, something along those lines. For maybe a fish, you would want to go with a blue background. For something else, you may choose another color. So again, enjoy this activity. It's very simple and straightforward. Take time to do the details. That's the main lesson in this one, taking time. Try to be the same, consistent and persistent all the way along. Choose something that's very simple in design and help the students to make those borders in advance. There's nothing wrong with doing that. In fact, if you just photocopy that rectangular shape on your page, then they've all got that there nice and clean, and you're saving some time. Have a great time.